Thanks, Jen. Right, good morning, kia ora everybody. Welcome to today's Strategic Planning and Policy Committee meeting on being the 5th of April. I take it we all have our agendas sorted out now, so apologies for people viewing online. A little bit of lateness. We had a technical issue with our agendas. It's been resolved now, so we shall kick off as we normally do, starting with apologies. I'm aware we have apologies from Hazel and Graham, and one from Liz Stolwick for lateness. So Councillor Pettit is to move and Roger is going to second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Fantastic. Moving then on to disclosures of members' interests. Does anybody have an interest they need to declare in respect of today's agenda at all? No, lots of shaking heads. That's fantastic. Nice and tidy. Then moving on to late items. I'm not aware of there being any at this stage, and nobody is alerting me to there being any. So we'll move on then to the next item, which is confirmation of the order of meeting. Again, I'm not aware of there being a need there to change. Claire is happy to move it. Andrew's going to second for me. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Carried. Great. Moving then to our confirmation of our previous minutes from our meeting on the 15th of March. These appear from page 8 of our agenda onwards. So I'll just flick through the page numbers and wave your hands or yell out at me if you have an issue with the correctness of those. So page 8 and 9, 10, 11, and that's it.
I'll move.
Roger's happy to move and Lou will second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Carried. Great. So that moves us to our first substantive item, and the one that caused a little bit of bugbear in terms of our agenda this morning, but it's all resolved now, thankfully. The draft animal nuisance bylaw, a recommendation of deliberations. And we have Graham Pollard here with us this morning. Good morning, Graham. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all as well. I hope you're all well. Everyone in this household is fit and healthy at the moment. Long may it continue. Today we are recommencing the deliberations for the draft animal nuisance bylaw. Just a reminder that the submissions were heard on the 1st of February, where some submitters were in disagreement with clause 5.4 as it was written regarding keeping bees, and stating that was at complete variance with expert evidence on beekeeping, which had previously been submitted to Council as part of the Plan Change 18 process. Now, unfortunately, this expert evidence hadn't actually been drawn to the project team's attention. So we were relying on following another council's bylaws provisions for beekeeping, which we were told had been approved by the beekeeping industry. Now, this expert evidence has been provided to you with the agenda, so you can actually see what was said for Plan Change 18. Obviously, there's an internal process that is needed to be addressed here regarding the disclosure of all relevant documentation when a project's passed from one council team to another, and especially as in this case where we've got legal counsel as part of the project team as well as a key member. Managers are looking at how best we ensure this disclosure process happens, so that we minimise at least and at best completely eliminate repeats of a situation such as we had here. So again, on behalf of the project team, I apologise for that problem arising. We're doing our best to make sure that we don't repeat it. The draft animal nuisance bylaw, principally clause 5.4, has been amended in the light of that expert evidence on beekeeping. Those principal changes, just in summary, is that we're recommending no longer a restriction on the number of hives on a site. So if the number of hives and the bees causes a nuisance in the circumstances, we've still got clauses 4.1 and 5.1 that would be breached. So if there's no nuisance, there's not a problem. The clauses are there that we can use if there is a problem. The lack of restriction on hives would allow nucleus hives to be utilised as part of best beekeeping practice as per the expert evidence. The distances from hives to boundaries have been amended to reflect that expert evidence. Requirement for the solid fence or hedge along the boundary at a height of 1.8 metres, that's consistent with the district plan, and extending for 5 metres either side of the hives is included now to manage bee flight paths. Again, in the circumstances, if nuisance is caused, we've got those two clauses, 4.1 and 5.1, that we can use to actually manage the nuisance. So those clauses mean that we don't actually have to write in any further restrictions into the bylaw itself. You'll notice we've also amended, as a result of this, our staff responses, our staff comments, and the recommendations to the submissions. Otherwise, the summary of submissions document is organised exactly the same as it was in February. So we've got general submission points followed by the specific ones around keeping bees, then pigs, and then poultry. And elected members will recall last month as well the decision to defer researching the issues of cat management until a later date. Some of these submitters had commented on that particular issue. So sorry about the length of that introduction, Chair, but I'm sure in the circumstances you appreciate a summary of the changes that we've had to make to our advice to the committee.
Thank you, Graham. No, that's really helpful. Marcus, you have your hand up.
Yeah, that's really good, Graham. I'm really happy with those changes in regards to the bees and bits and pieces. When is the further date for the cats?
We haven't decided yet. I think that's going to have to go into our business planning. I think Kirsty's probably in a better position to outline the timetable on the business planning, but I personally am fairly full now for most of this year, so we'll just have to work it in as best we can in terms of our initial community research. Again, we need to work that in with the communications team. We've got a lot of consultations coming up in the next few weeks or so. So it's just a case of fitting it in, but we've by no means dropped it on the quiet. We will proceed with it and just see what the feeling is in the community.
Okay, that's cool, because I don't want to see it drop, because it comes up, it gets dropped, it comes up, and we just don't think to do anything about it. So it'd be good to actually do it this time.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. It's very much on the to-do list, Marcus, for sure, which is reasonably lengthy, but it is nevertheless on the to-do list. Lou, and then Roger.
Yeah, thank you very much, Graham. I think that adjustment actually makes what the original proposal was for our bylaw. So I think that actually brings it into place. I did feel I had some APRIS actually ring me over this issue and state that it wasn't actually good practice what we're doing, limiting the hives and doing it the way we had actually presented it. So this brings it into good practice. I think that's very, very important.
Thanks, Lou. Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Graham, with 5.4 B, with the property boundary and the fence 1.8 metres, I can see the logic of that in an urban area. But if that urban property is adjacent to a rural reserve, does that requirement still exist? If the property's urban but it's adjacent to, in fact, it's the Moon Stream here.
That's a very good question, Councillor. Can I just sort of have a little bit of time to think that one through? So you're saying that
it's actually
not a residential property on the other side of the boundary.
That's correct.
Should
Yes.
there be a requirement for that site? Can I just take a bit of time while to just go through the expert evidence and see if there's anything in there that helps me to answer that? I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Yep.
Claire, have you a question there whilst
Yes.
that question is just parked up temporarily? And welcome, Liz.
Yeah, so the question I had could probably be answered by Tony Quickfall, I think, who's here, because when we first had our deliberations, there was a concern expressed by planning staff that with the increase in densification in urban areas, that they were reluctant to sort of create a problem with having beehives a permitted activity, you know, when you know, like how many beehives there would be and the potential for conflict within an urban area where you've got a lot of residences in close proximity. And I just wonder, Tony, if you could just give some comment on that with the, you know, with the adoption of the expert evidence for this.
Yeah, thank you. So the expert evidence, I guess, is consistent with Plan Change 18 that went before the hearing committee. So the expert evidence hasn't changed so much. I guess it is a consideration that we do have this Housing Enablement Supply Act that we have to give effect to as well. So it is a consideration around general intensification. However, my recollection of the expert evidence was that sort of bee nuisance that derives from proximity to activities like washing and car parking and things like that, more than sort of backyard activities. And you can be close to bees without necessarily being nuisanced by them, if that makes sense. So in and of itself, intensification probably, as long as we've got some boundaries around the quantity of beehives, and we've got the evidence to support their flight paths, then the intensification in and of itself shouldn't be a factor.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Graham, can I help a little bit here? If you look at my virtual background, you'll see that there are trees just over my right shoulder. The hives are in fact possibly about 10 meters beyond there, the other side of the Moon Stream, which then looks over reserve.
Yeah, okay. I found something very quickly in the expert evidence, page 4, towards the bottom on location of site. Point 3 is talking about where neighbouring land is wasteland or has trees on it. Suggesting, if I've read this right, while obviously conversation has been happening in my ears as well, that there may not be a need to fence. So I wonder whether we could potentially amend 5.4b, which I think you were referring to, Councillor.
Yes. Yep.
As to whether it is a residential property boundary, or some wording to indicate that it's the boundaries between two residential properties.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a note of that and see whether we can find a form of wording there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Claire, did you still have a question? Another question, or is your hand still up? Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or discussion to be had around the draft bylaw before us? No. no other questions. Andrew's got a thumbs up. So Graham, have you got some whizzy way potentially on the assumption that that finds favour with everybody to make that slight amendment to 5.4b? Have you got some suggested wording there, Graham?
That we, it's sounding to me as everyone is sounding happy with the draft bylaw as we now have it, and on that basis we presumably can respond to the submitters in accordance with that, in which case it would be subject to 5.4b being reworded.
Yes.
The beehives must be separated from I don't know how the best to word it. I thought the residential property boundary, but it's the key is getting that land use the other side of the boundary that Councillor Gordon's obviously interested in. So if anyone has any ideas, please help me.
I was just thinking for the purposes of today, because you're recommending it through to council, as long as you agree the substance of the change that you want made to 5.4, then the exact wording can be brought back to council for consideration. So we don't need to be drafting the bylaw on the spot this morning.
Thank you, Jo.
Great, that's a great idea, Jo. Thank you for that. So, oh gosh.
Yes, I'm slightly uncomfortable in trying to work out precise wording of a legal document on the fly, as it were.
I appreciate that. Sorry, I've just been thrown out of my diligence. I'm just trying to get back into it. Technical dramas.
I'm happy with that approach, Graham.
You're comfortable with that? Excellent. Okay, so on that basis,
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
So we have that recommendation there on page 13 to accept the report, and then the other two recommendations, B and C. Roger, were you happy? Were you effectively moving those?
Yeah, I will move. Yep.
Excellent, thank you. And Lou has seconded them, and we'll address the finer details of that wording presumably at a council level. Yeah,
but just if we could, in terms of those recommendations, add something in to reflect what you want changed, so they won't be able to be passed just as they stand. So it would be, just trying to get back to where I was.
So through you, Madam Chair, Jo, I think we need to capture that within Part B and C.
Part C, yeah.
And specifically reference clause 5.4b being amended to reflect elected member concerns about properties located in residential adjoining reserve land.
So are we happy then as a committee that those amendments will be made to reflect what Kirsty's just said in paragraphs B and C, or would we like to see them typed up? I think it looks like we're pretty comfortable with the notion of what you've just discussed. So on that basis, Roger's happy to move it. Lou seconded it. All those in favour say aye.
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 Against? Oh, Roger, you're waving your, sorry, Graham, you're waving your hand around.
Yes, sorry, Chair, it's just occurred to me that these are the changes to the draft bylaw we've considered with regard to beekeeping. There were some submitters around the pigs and the poultry keeping that we didn't consider in February. I'm just wondering whether the committee just wants to take a look at some of those. I think we're recommending that we take out the pig provisions completely, and there's some potential changes, I think, around the poultry keeping as well. I personally, I'd feel comfortable that the committee had just had looked at those, so we can respond to the submitters. Except you probably just made the recommendation now, so.
Yeah, well, that's I guess the issue we're in technically.
Yeah.
I put the motion. It's been put and it's been seconded.
Yeah. But so just as long as I'm aware, then that everyone is happy with those.
I believe so. Otherwise, questions would have been raised by councillors in our discussion. There was no desire to discuss those issues any further. So I'm comfortable that members were happy with that. So it's been, the motion's been put, seconded. All those in favour said aye, and I said against, and there was no answer to that. So it's the motion, the recommendations are carried.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, thank you, Graham. Right, now hoping this is going to play ball for me because my diligence playing up. Moves us on then to our next item, which is the Waipa District Council submission on the Ministry for Environment's Our Future Resource Management System discussion document. It's a very long title, but I got it out in one breath. And today we have David Topman, I believe.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can't see David Topman here. I'm happy to provide an intro to this report if that will assist. I think we're running out of time, Madam Chair. So this report is providing a copy of a submission that was made in response to the MFE discussion document that was issued at the end of 2021. Councillors have had a workshop to provide feedback, and the submission has been lodged. Because of timing, this has now been reported back to you to formally receive the submission that has been made. Happy to respond to any questions if there are any.
Yeah,
and I think, Madam Chair, I can also see that David has now joined us. So David will be here to respond to any questions also.
Fantastic, thanks very much, Kirsty. As Kirsty just mentioned, this is just for receiving, and yes, Graham has, David has arrived. So are there any questions for David in respect of the submission? No, lots of shaking heads, so it doesn't appear to be that there are any questions. So you got off lightly, David. You might be able to leave as quickly as you arrived. So I have a recommendation there to receive that report appearing on page 144. I'm happy to move from the chair. Claire is going to second for me. So all those in favour say aye.
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 Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Lou, you've got your hand up. Did you have something you wish to add? You're on mute, Lou.
My hand went up, but I'd just like to say one thing, that it was a very well prepared. Well done, David. It's an excellent document.
Great.
Thank you. If I just add, it was a good team effort, so thank you all for contributing. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Fantastic. Right. According to my agenda, therefore, we now have a break. We're going speedy Gonzales here. So how about we just have a break for about 5 minutes, and then we will come back for the remainder of our agenda. We're comfortable doing that? Yep. Great. So I will see everybody back at about 25 to